Storytime Tinder edition. Okay, the story blew up on Twitter like a while ago, but I'm just gonna retell it because it's very informational. So there was this guy and this girl, and they met through Tinder, and then they met up and they went on this date. And they were out at dinner, and then she starts not feeling so well. And then she says, I really need to go home. And he says, yeah, I'll drive you home. And she says, okay. So then they get to her house, and then she starts feeling better. So then she says, do you want to come in for some coffee? And then he says, yeah, sure. So they go inside, they have their coffee, and then she doesn't feel well again. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't feel well again. I think you really need to leave. And he's like, okay. And he leaves. And then she goes to bed, and in the middle of the night, she wakes up, and she hears this noise down in her kitchen. And so she locks her door, and she calls the cop. And the 911 operator is just on the other line saying, can you just stay on the line until the cops get there? And then the cops get there, and they're like, the door is locked. Like, we don't think anyone's inside. And she's like, I promise you, someone's inside my house. I can hear them. She says, you have my permission to break down the door. So she's still up in her room, and then she hears the cops break down the door. And then she hears some wrestling and some fighting. Part 2 coming now.
I had just moved into my first apartment with my boyfriend. On move-in day, my boyfriend was working, so I started moving things alone. I noticed my neighbor, who is a man probably in his late 60s, was watching me the entire time, so I waved as I was going into my apartment. When I walked out of my apartment, he was standing outside my door and said, I guess I should have helped you. That was the last encounter I had for about a week. My boyfriend had never seen this man, so I assumed he believed that I lived by myself. My next encounter, it was about 11 p.m. and I took my dog outside to go potty. I looked up and the same man was watching me from his blinds. I was extremely creeped out, so I looked away and tried to get my dog to hurry up. I looked at his blinds again and he was no longer there. About 30 seconds later, my dog started to freak out and lunge. So I looked and the man came outside. The first thing he said is, I just wanted to let you know I walked into your apartment. My friend used to live here and I got confused. He stumbled over his words and got into his car. My boyfriend was in the living room before I took the dog outside, so I rushed inside to talk to him. He immediately started talking about it. He said this man opened the door and began to walk in, but they made eye contact. As soon as he saw my boyfriend, he hurried and shut the door and went to talk to me. I haven't had an experience since the last time I saw him, but from everything that has happened, it's easy to assume that this man thought I lived alone and was planning on waiting for me in my apartment. And that is the end of my
story time to when my boyfriend cheated on me with his mom and this other girl. Also, this is not my story. Okay, so everything was normal for the first 5 to 6 months. Until he started acting very suspicious. And when I say he was very suspicious, I mean he was hiding his phone from me and he was always busy to hang out with me. But I didn't think anything of it, so, I moved on. Until one day we were in his room and he was taking a shower. I was sitting on his bed and then I heard a bing. And like any girl, I was curious, so I checked his phone. And it was his mom sending him a picture of her boob. Well, half of her boob showing. And as anyone would be, I was shocked. But I just thought it was the wrong person, so I forgot about it. Until we got into an argument and I brought it up. But he just acted confused and said that I was lying. So I said, then you wouldn't mind if I looked at your phone. Come back for part 2. So I asked him if I could check his phone if I was really lying, and he just walked away. And he also just drove away. But later that night, we got into another argument and I asked him where he went. And it got really heated again, and this time he left for 2 days. And I was really worried when he got back, but then he smelled very weird. So I asked him where he was, and this time he answered, and you guys know what he said? At my sister's house having a threesome with her and another guy that apparently he was seeing for a couple weeks now. So then I thought maybe it wasn't his mom that sent him the picture of her boob. So I stormed out of the house and sent him a text message saying that we were done. So the next day I asked him who else he was sleeping with while he was with me, and he mentioned his mom's name, my sister's name, a guy named Mike, and someone from my job. And I currently do not communicate with him or my sister.
Story time about how I found out that my mom was sleeping with my history teacher to get me better grades. So it was my junior year of high school, and everybody knows that your junior year is the most important year of high school. If you didn't, well, now you know. My brother was in his senior year of high school, and when he was a junior, he had the same teacher, so he knew how hard the class was. So he would stay up with me every night helping me to pass my history class. Well, the one day I'm at school and I'm taking a test, and I literally did not know anything on the test. and I studied the night before for literally 4 hours straight. So I decided to copy off the girl next to me. Well, a few days later, we get our test back, and I'm looking at mine, and I got a 97%. And then I look over to the girl next to me, she got a 33%. And then I started going through the tests, none of the essay questions looked like my handwriting, but I didn't say anything because I wanted that A. Well, the one night, I'm sitting down with my family having dinner, and I told them that I copied off the girl next to me, and how I got a 97% and she got a 33%, and my brother flips out like for part 2. Part 2 of my mom sleeping with my history teacher to get me better grades. So like I said, I told my parents that I got a 97, she got a 33. And I was telling them how the handwriting didn't even look like mine and everything. And then my brother starts flipping out. In front of my dad, too. He goes, "Mom, are you fucking serious? You couldn't let her try and do this on her own?" And I was super confused. Like, I thought that maybe he was talking about my mom paid off the teacher. But then he said, "Yeah, Dad, if you didn't know, Mom's been fucking our history teacher to get us better grades." And then he goes, "Mom, you're such a fucking whore." And my mom's sitting there not even fazed. She just took a drink of her wine and said, "Get the fuck upstairs now." Before my brother leaves the table, he goes, "Maybe you can fuck Dad's boss too. Maybe he'll get a raise." And then I realized what was happening. And it's around 6:30 p.m. So after that, a lot of stuff happened. My dad obviously wanted to get a divorce at that point. So my dad took my brother and I to our grandparents. And we stayed with them for like 2 weeks. But then everybody at school found out. And we got made fun of a lot. And then after that, we moved schools.